Hey everybody, Pastor Matt here. I want to put together a few videos that talk about logical fallacies. A logical fallacy is basically where you are putting things together and coming to conclusions based upon a false path or a false um, sequence of putting your arguments together to determine whether someone is right or whether someone is wrong. And so I'm going to give you the first example of this, and it's something that's called a logical fallacy of ad hominem, a logical fallacy of ad hominem. Ad hominem basically means to the man. And so what you're doing is, rather than dealing with the arguments that someone is bringing on their own merit, you look at the person, who they are, where they came from, anything that's about them to discredit the argument that they are making. We see this happening over and over again. And I'm going to pull out a few arguments that I pulled out for a class that I taught. Gosh, I guess it's been about 10 years ago to juniors in high school. And it's basically, here's one example. So Bill comes along and says, I believe abortion is morally wrong. Well, then Dave will answer, well, of course you would say that. You're a priest. Well, then Bill responds, what about the arguments I gave to support my position? Dave then responds, those don't count. Like I said, you're a priest, so you have to say that abortion is a wrong. Further, you're just a lackey for the Pope, so I can't believe anything that you say. When you start talking about like things regarding natural selection and evolution. So Mike will come along and say, I believe in natural selection and microevolution. Ron replies, that figures. You teach biology at a university. Well, Mike then comes along, will you listen to my arguments? Then Ron replies, well, why would I? You've been brainwashed by those pagan scientists and institutions. Do you see how it works both ways? So one is a Christian can respond to something, and then a non-believer will say, well, of course you'd believe that. You're of a faith practice. That's what you believe, and you're really just brainwashed. And then but Christians can do the other thing and do an ad hominem toward those who are not inside the church and do the exact same thing. You've been brainwashed by pagan scientists and institutions. Here's another example that has come up, that Christians are guilty even in infighting amongst themselves. Jim comes along and says, I believe there's only one true version of the Bible. Ben responds, well, of course you would. You're just one of those hard-shell Baptists. Now, that was an expression back in Kentucky when I used to live there. And Jim would respond, would you consider listening to my position? Ben responds, why would I? You all are just so narrow-minded, I'll pass. So what's this got to do with today? Well, today now we're looking at ad hominem arguments to where we're looking at someone based upon their race. We're not listening to their arguments. We're listening to them based upon their race. Well, you're an African American and you just don't this, that, and this and that. Well, you're white, so you really can't say anything about this or that. You're a man, you can't really say anything about an abortion issue unless, if you're a woman, then you are able to do this. So what we're doing now is we're looking at people and we're putting people in a group, in a herd, and then all of a sudden now we're not listening to what they're having to say based upon a preconceived notion about who they are. We're talking to the man. Again, that's what ad hominem means. It's Latin for to the man. We're looking at the group or a ideology that we think that they have by just looking at them and just taking a snapshot of them. So here's some questions I want to ask you. Have there been times when you've been on the giving or receiving end of an ad hominem argument? What steps can you take to avoid this when engaging with someone of a differing belief or worldview? How does ad hominem violate the great commandment, which is to love God with all we have, to love our neighbor as ourselves, and the great commission, which is going and making disciples? We've got to be aware of looking at an ad hominem argument. Listen to the arguments that are being made. Listen to what they're trying to say and deal with the arguments on their own merit rather than putting and categorizing people based upon what you think they are, based upon skin color, economic development, background, whatever you may think. Listen to the arguments that are being said and you'll avoid engaging in an ad hominem logical fallacy. That's all I've got right now, everybody. Thanks a lot.